Martyr Ashot Curapalati, king of Artanuji, commemorated on January 29th. In the year 786, Ashot, the son of Artanuji, ascended the throne of Kartli. From the very beginning of his reign, he fought fiercely for the reunification of Georgia. His first step was to take advantage of the Arab Muslims' weariness and banish them from Tbilisi. 3 years passed, and under the leadership of a new ruler, the reinvigorated Muslims began to hunt for Ashot. The king was forced to flee after he delayed taking action against them. The enemy had again conquered Tbilisi. Ashot was compelled to leave Kartli, and he departed for Byzantium with his family and small army. The refugees journeyed as far as Bagratid in southern Georgia and stopped near Lake Paravani for a rest. But while they were sleeping, a Saracen army assailed their camp. The king's army was doomed, but God helped Ashot Curapalati and his scant army. He bestowed power upon them, and they defeated an enemy that greatly outnumbered them. The king was deeply moved by God's miraculous intervention and decided that rather than journeying on to Byzantium as he had intended, he would remain in the region of Clarjeti. At that time, southern Georgia was suffering great calamities. A cholera epidemic intensified the struggles of a people devastated by a ruthless enemy. Very few had survived, but that powerless and wearied remnant gladly received Ashot Curapalati as their new leader, and the king began to restore the region at once. Ashot Curapalati restored Artanuji Castle, which had originally been built by King Vakhtang Gorgasali and later ravaged by the Arab general Marwan the Deaf. Ashot founded a city nearby and proclaimed it the residence of the Bagratid royal family of Clarjeti. He also constructed a church in honor of Saints Peter and Paul. As it is written, God granted Ashot Curapalati great strength and many victories. The region of Clarjeti took on a new life, and through the efforts of Saint Grigol of Khandzta and his companions, the former wasteland was transformed into a borough, bustling with churches, monasteries, and schools. Georgian noblemen soon began traveling to Clarjeti to forge their nation's future with King Ashot and the other God-fearing leaders. Ashot Curapalati was not only a leader who campaigned vigorously for the unification of Georgia, he was truly a godly-minded man. With great honor and joy, he was the host of Saint Grigol of Khandzta, a heavenly man and an earthly angel. Saint Grigol blessed Ashot's kingdom and his inheritance. Upon those who labored at Khandzta Monastery, Ashot Curapalati bestowed the best lands, including Shotberdi, to serve as rural estates, which would supply food for the monastery. His children, Adarnerse, Bagrat, and Guaram, would later contribute much of their own fortune to the revival of the monasteries in the Clarjeti wilderness. Udabno in Georgian, translated as wilderness, these deserted places where hermits made their abodes often attracted monks and pious laymen as the fame of these holy men spread. Over the centuries, with the foundation of numerous monasteries, these deserts became veritable cities and only retained the name wilderness in a figurative sense. But after some time, the usually virtuous King Ashot fell in love with a certain woman. He forgot his honor, his achievements, and his loyalty to God and the nation, and took her to Artanuji Castle, an estate that had been built for the queen. Saint Grigol, however, heard about the king's adulterous relationship and became exceedingly sorrowful. He confronted the king about his behavior, and the desperate Ashot promised to leave the woman, but he could not bring himself to fulfill his promise. So, Saint Grigol took her to Mir Monastery and turned her over to the abbess, Mother Pabronia, without telling Ashot. Upon hearing what had happened, King Ashot pleaded with Mother Pabronia to return the woman, but the abbess refused. At long last, Ashot bowed his head to the nun and repented, saying, "Blessed is the man who is no longer alive to this world." The king rediscovered his love for God and his country, and he prepared to return to Kartli. But his plans were foiled when a certain Muslim warrior named Khalil invaded, conquering the lands of Kartli, Hereti, and Kvemo Kartli. Ashot sent his men to assemble an army, but before the troops had been gathered, the Saracens attacked and forced them to flee. The king then traveled to Nigali Gorge with the intent of enlarging his army. Some of the draftees turned out to be traitors, and when the king discovered the betrayal, it was already too late. He hid in a church, but the godless men found him and stabbed him to death in the sanctuary. They murdered him on the altar, as though slaughtering a sacrificial lamb, and his blood remains there to this day, writes Sumbat, the son of David, in his book Lives of the Bagrationis. Thus the first Bagrationi king, a believer upon whom the inheritance of the Georgian people was established, was also a martyr. The Georgians took revenge on the murderers of their beloved king. When the people of Doliskana heard that Ashot had been killed, they pursued his murderers and killed them near the Kartli River. Venerable Grigol and the Georgian people wept bitterly over the loss of their king and hope. Saint Ashot's holy relics were buried in the church of Saints Peter and Paul that he himself had built.
Ave